Another point from that thread that really like blew my mind, and this is kind of like what really got me super interested with Naval, is about how you're not going to get rich like renting out your time, and like if you want to get truly rich, you have to own equity. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think the people that we normally think of as successful or as rich are, I think the first association a lot of people have is people who are well paid, right? So doctors, lawyers, um, engineers, computer scientists, people who have high salaries. And I'm sure Morgan talked about this as well. Like the practicality of that is when you have a high salary, you have high expenses, and we tend to adjust really quickly to whatever the inflows are. And those people are trading their time for money, a lot of money, and they're very skilled people, um, but they're not necessarily building a pool of wealth that is working for them as they sleep, right? And that they are not building a set of resources that works for them, that builds leverage, that compounds over time. And there's not a lot of upside. The lawyers that you see or the doctors that you see that do get very wealthy are often the ones who own their own firm. And so even the ones who, there are plenty of rich doctors and lawyers, like don't get me wrong, but they built a lot of their wealth by owning a business and leveraging their time and their judgment and their experience with capital, with employees, with other tools, with other resources, so that judgment was multiplied, and they made their money on the equity often rather than trading their time.
Yeah, yeah, it's like such an important point to make. Like even if you're making like if you're a lawyer, you're making $600 an hour. If you're sleeping or you're on vacation, like you're not making money. It's only when you own like equity, like a stock, and it could grow like independently without the inputs that you put in. So it's just another important point that you want to separate those two.
Yeah, the equity piece is interesting because there's a lot of ways to build equity or buy equity in a business, right? So somebody who's just investing in an index fund in the stock market is buying equity in a business, and you can, work as a lawyer for $200,000 a year, save half your income, still live a great life, and invest that in the stock market. You don't have to spend much time on it. You don't have to think too hard about it. But that wealth is going to compound and is going to grow, and that comes from owning his equity in a business. You can work at a startup where you get stock options, and that's equity in a business. You can kind of earn it with sweat equity. You can also just start a business, and all of a sudden you own 100% of this small business and grow it from there. So there are many paths towards equity ownership that are available to people at all different times. It is not this kind of there's not as big of a gate around it sometimes as people perceive, but it is good to know that that's your goal and that that's what you need to kind of work towards, and not get tricked into thinking that you're going to get another raise and that's going to make the huge difference in your wealth creation. You got to find your way towards owning equity.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I just read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and it talks about how you have to use that money that you saved up and invest it. You have to put that money to work to make more money. And then the last piece of advice I really loved from Naval was how you have to use leverage. And like the three main leverages are capital, labor, and then products with a zero marginal cost. So can you talk a little bit how people use leverage to create wealth?
Yeah, leverage is maybe my favorite idea in the whole book, in part because it put a label on something that I sensed there's something there without a label that I wasn't quite sure how to articulate and how to think about. And so classifying that, he really unlocked a kind of new set of thoughts for me that I'm continuing to explore, and hope to write a lot more about. Um, and it's fun to kind of put that lens over the world and start to dissect how different people have made their money and how businesses are built and how really skilled people use leverage, and it's kind of built into a lot of things. But once you kind of list it out like this, you start to see it a little bit more. So let's continue the lawyer example, right? So a lawyer who's maybe a few years into their career is doing a lot of kind of lower level work. They have, a partner above them. They're an associate at a firm. They're getting paid only a little bit. They don't have an assistant. They're billed out at a lower hourly rate. Um, but as they grow and as their judgment grows, they get more and more resources to allocate. So as they get promoted, they may get an assistant or a secretary to save them, pull more of their time into high value tasks. They may get an associate assigned to them, or a paralegal so that they do less lower level tasks. They may the firm may spend money on them to be sure that they are getting, get their dry cleaning done, get them a car to and from so that they can spend more billable hours. And so when things are billed hourly, you can start to see people buying back that time. It makes the equation really clear. But for other entrepreneurs or authors or whoever else is working on this, know that you have an hourly value on your time as well, and that whenever you can use leverage through automation, through tools, through the support of others, through capital, just by paying or ignoring, allowing costs to accrue, you can kind of gain leverage and gain that time back. And the people that you see who are maximally leveraged are maybe Warren Buffett or Elon Musk, or the people with such undeniably excellent judgment that they have billions of dollars at their disposal and hundreds or thousands of people, because society just trusts that they are going to know what to do with those resources, and they've proven and built that over time. And so if you see a business as just a collection of different types of lever, of tools, of resources, of people, of money, you start to kind of see the world in that way, and then scale it all the way back to like, where are you? What are you trying to achieve? And where can you look for, a force multiplier as a lever that is within reach that you can use to kind of achieve those goals. So, for you with this podcast, I don't know if you edit it yourself or if you hire an editor, but that is a common one. So you can spend more time reading, more time creating original content, hiring an assistant to kind of maybe schedule out your posts, or using a tool to schedule out your social media posts so that you're not having to open Twitter every hour on the hour and do all of these things manually. So there are tiny levers that can get you started, and there are huge, enormous levers that drive society, and seeing both of those and the whole scale of them is a really kind of interesting way to see the world.
Yeah, and I loved how you mentioned, like, in this book, Naval was able to articulate so many things that we feel we know, but then he's able just to use like the right words, like such as leverage. And yeah, after reading this book, I'm thinking, okay, where can I apply leverage into my life? Like, I should probably hire someone to edit the podcast so I could focus on like the core aspect of it. And just one person that, Jack Butcher, who did the illustrations for this book, he has this great course called Build Once, Sell Twice. Because if you build something once, you could leverage that and sell it an infinite number of times. It doesn't matter how many people want to buy it. And that's just like a great form of leverage. And now he's been super successful with the course. So yeah, you want to look for areas in your life and think, where can I apply this lever and increase the leverage? Yeah.